Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. You know, tea culture is always developing, it's always evolving. It may have over 4,000 years of history, but it's always changing. And at Mayleaf, we love to help to push the boundaries of tea, to try to develop new tastes and new experiences from this mighty tea leaf. So we've done lots of experiments before. We've done house roasted raw pu'er. We've done house roasted ripe pu'er. I think we were the first to do those types of tea that I'm aware of. We've done our push button smile, which is our low oxygen stored black tea. We've done lots of different experiments, you know, if you've been following, and they delight us. And this here in front of me is our latest experiment. This is taking a very classic black tea, a Qimen black tea. If you don't know about Qimen, then go check out the video in the description below where we visit Qimen area and you can learn everything that you need to know about Qimen. So this is a Qimen Maofeng tea from 2020 that we asked the producer, we selected it obviously from the Maocha, and then we asked the producer to again store it in low oxygen but with higher humidity, so to try to bring out some more fermentation in the tea. So similar to push button smile, but with the added element of trying to increase humidity on a very expensive, so kind of a lot of risk here, expensive tea type. Qimen is one of the more expensive black tea types, and stored for 3 years. So I'm speaking to you from the end of 2023. And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be tasting this tea. So obviously I've tasted a sample that was sent to me by the producer. I loved it. It had that real rich fermented taste, but now this is the first time I'm tasting it since the whole batch has arrived. So I'm super excited to get stuck in. And I can tell you, the smell on these leaves is just fruity, fermented raisins. Incredible. So we'll quickly scope this tea. This is from spring 2020. This is the Juyezhong cultivar from Qimen. It's a Maofeng, which means that it's slightly different from the superior Qimen. So superior Qimen is the top level. Go check out that video of us exploring Qimen, and go check out the website for our superior Qimen tea. Beautiful, complex, malty, biscuity, slightly medicinal with its wintergreen notes, flowery, fruity. I mean, a very complex tea. But Qimen, I've said it before, I have a sort of love-hate relationship with Qimen because it's either there and it's amazing, but there's so much Qimen which is like, it doesn't quite make it. But when you find the right batch, it is singing. And we loved this batch of Maofeng tea, but you know, there's always risk when you're gonna go for these experiments. But the smell of these dry leaves, and obviously, as I said, I tasted one sample from the producer when it was sent to us. So we've been sort of not touching it. I told the producer, just hang on to it. But I thought 2023, it's been 3 years of sitting around. Let's see what it tastes like. And the aromatics and the taste was incredible. So I am very excited to get stuck in to taste this, this tea properly. Here we go. Smell of dry leaf. Yeah, just, I mean, it's got some of those biscuity notes and those malty, warm, milky notes that I love about Qimen, but it's got a lot of fruit. And the fruit is slightly tart, slightly sour, fermented raisins. Reminds me a little bit of like a rind of a, okay, maybe like dried aged pomelo skins. Lots of raisins, a touch of, you know, when you have a dark chocolate and it's got a bit more of a red currant sourness to it. So a dark chocolate, when you eat it, some of them can have an acidity to them. It has that chocolatey acidity too. Really nice and very, very interesting and kind of unusual. Well, I mean, these are sort of flavor notes that you would maybe associate with Qimen Maofeng, but definitely extended to a more fruity and fermented note. Smell of the wet leaf. Ooh, ooh. Interesting. Very overripe cherries, to the point where they're really overripe. If you smelt the packet, you might be like, reserve that for jam or throw it away. It's sort of not rotten, but it's like very, very, very ripe cherries. Yeah, it's got that pushed quality to it. It smells fermented and funky. A touch of that distant elephant house, but like really, really distant. Reminds me of some of those ouds that you may smell from Assam, that have this very fruity, overripe mango, overripe cherries, but moving to the slightly elephant house note. You know what I mean? But very, very distant. But it's there, and it adds a little like, wake up brain, ooh, what's going on here, which sort of demands attention, which is never a bad thing. Hopefully it's not going to translate in the taste. Yeah, it has a sort of very fruity but a little bit zoo-like quality. There are some creams. I'm sort of imagining cherry yogurts, but not too sour, like a very creamy, sweet cherry yogurt as well. A very interesting smell. Unusual, fascinating, engaging, and hopefully it's going to be delicious. Oh, I'm starting to get stressed. All right. Not that I don't like the smell, because when I smell ouds that have that slightly sort of elephant house note, it just brings me to terroir. It's like, wow, I feel like I'm in the bazaars and in the in these sort of spice markets, and like you've got the funk and the smell of fruit, spices, and animals. So it's nice. It sort of adds a complexity of origin, which is very as it develops. It develops into there's more in there. Some white flowers are coming through. It's actually very complex smell. Oof. White flowers, like, just, I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of white flower embrocation oil. So it's still got a little bit of that medicinal quality that I always associate with Qimen teas. Then we're going to let this brew. We're brewing in our gentray. I will obviously taste in porcelain and see if the notes are different when I come to write up the notes in the website. This is the first time I'm tasting this as this tea has just come in. But I tasted it about 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago, when I asked the supplier to dip into the experimental bags and pull out a sample for me. Okay, color, lovely. Resinous color, orange resin. Oh, it's bright. Oh, it's got a lot of activity going on there. As always, the color is more muted because I'm seeing it with the lights going through. It's like a copper orange color, but very, very bright. I'm smelling that very classic black tea smell that I associate with English breakfast, sort of slightly nutty, mineral, bright. So this is the home of English breakfast tea, Qimen. It's got that sort of Ceylon quality. Okay, cheers everybody. Texture. Medium. Medium, thin to medium. It's refreshing. I was hoping to be slightly thicker than that. Maybe it'll brew out in more infusions, but I am brewing in the Gen Shui, so I should be maximizing thickness. But let's class it as medium for now. I mean, nothing wrong. It has that bright, fresh English breakfast quality to it. Taste. Taste is, I'm getting some cedars, sort of pencil shaving note to it. I'm getting some hazelnuts as well. Not so much of the fruit. Not so much of the fruit right now, which is kind of I was expecting a little bit more fruit. Okay, I'm getting some raisiny quality at the end. So after I swallow, I'm getting quite sweet raisins, sweet, yeah, it's got this mineral and woodsy in the taste, and then after you've swallowed, slightly medicinal, slightly it's almost like you've taken raisins and soaked them in, I don't know, like a little bit of a sweet cough syrup as a finish. But in terms of taste, I'm struggling to pick up the fermented notes. It tastes quite straight ahead Qimen. So let's brew it up again. It's a lovely Maofeng taste. This is what I'd expect from a Maofeng. You know, some little bit of rose and more in the woodsy, bright, nutty note. Woodsy and bright doesn't really make sense. I mean, woodsy and nutty, but then there's a bright mineral quench and mineral freshness that has sort of made it synonymous with English breakfast and potentially the combining with lemon or milk. Not that it's bitter, but it's got a sort of dryness. The finish right now is a bit clean. It's a little bit clean. I'm hoping that these leaves are just waking up, although they are small leaves. I'm starting to panic a little bit here. All right, let's. Smell of the MT is nice. Has a burnt prune quality, like you've taken a prune and you've just sort of scorched it over a campfire. Not smoky, but a little bit of that, quality, fiery quality to it. All right, second infusion. Always a winner, or should be, at least. Cheers, everybody. Second infusion of a as yet unnamed tea, but check it out on the website. You'll see what the name is. I don't know. It's got all of the flavor notes of a Maofeng, but I'm not picking up the fermented fruit notes that I was in the smell, which is so redolent in the smell. It's quite extreme. Okay. So, you can probably tell that I'm struggling here a little bit because this tastes like a really good Maofeng tea. The smell of the dry, not even the smell of the wet, the smell of the dry is so fermented raisins and just this really lovely, you know, the experiment, right? The idea of how do we boost the sort of fermented fruity notes of a black tea. It's in that dry leaf. And when I tasted the sample that was sent, it was in the taste and in the smell of the wet leaf, and it is kind of there. Maybe it's the Gen Shui that's doing something to this tea, but I doubt it. Oh. Okay, so I have to be straight. All right, people. So there's a bit of a problem here. So the smell of the wet leaf is chocolatey and, yeah, I would say raisin chocolate raisins. It's nice. It's lovely. The taste is lovely. It's nice. But I have to say that I can't taste the experimental fermented note that, was the point of this tea. This tea tastes like a very high quality Maofeng. The aftertaste is juicy and sweet with rose and raisins and that little medicinal quality. The taste is brisk, medium thickness, medium to thin thickness. Brisk cedar woods, pencil shavings, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of malt. It's nice. It's a very nice tea. It's a very good quality tea. I can feel that in the sides of my tongue in terms of the mouthfeel. It reminds me of what it tasted like when I tasted it 3 years ago. Slightly, but no, it definitely has more age on it. And it definitely has more fruits on it. And the smell of the empty is lovely. Actually, it's building up more prunes and plums and raisins, dried fruits. But, and it is a capital B but, the point of the experiment was that we do something different with it. The point of the experiment was that we transform it more than the transformation that I'm tasting here. So I've got to figure out what to do now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna taste this in porcelain. I'm gonna check the hole because there's a few bags. There's quite a few bags of this, so I'm going to have to check the other bags and just see whether or not there's lots of things. Whenever you do experiments, there's risks, as I always say. Maybe the humidity pack that was included was not enough, and so certain areas didn't get enough humidity. Maybe the bit that I tried, that was sent was more close to the humidity pack. Maybe the humidity pack was on top and they just took from the top, and for some reason I was getting more. Maybe it was just that it was fresh and it was sent and now it's been sent by sea. It's lost some of that. There are too many unknowns for me to be able to calculate, but that's the whole point of the experiments, is that you hopefully learn. All I can say is when I tasted the sample from the producer after the 3 years of 4 months ago, it was like fermented fruit, heavenly. And right now I am not getting it. I'm getting a very good Maofeng tea that tastes a little bit more aged, but I'm not getting what I want. So, what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to turn off the cameras, do more testing, speak to the producer. I do have a lovely sweetness in my mouth. I know that this is a high quality tea. What can I do? We shall see. To be continued.